Well, I guess it's apparent now that RFK Jr. is having his political moment. I mean, his poll numbers against Joe Biden are up and people want to talk to him. I want to show you two of his recent appearances where he was asked about UAP, and charitably, he falls a little short of expectations. This is about what he says about UFOs and UAP. Let's take a look.
Last question on my pet issue that I know a lot of people want to know. Will you declassify all UFO-related documents as president?
Yeah, let me ask you something.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Did you see this article last week about the guy, about
Yes.
the military?
Yeah, we've covered it extensively here, yeah.
And do you think that that was a psyop, or do you think that that was real?
I believe it was real, based upon a lot of credible people who I know who have spoken with him and have vetted him.
Okay,
What do you think?
why don't you tell people what we're talking about?
Sure, yeah. For those who don't know, Dave Grush, who's an whistleblower, came forward through the intelligence community process. He says that multiple alien spacecraft are in the possession of the United States government. The Inspector General of the intelligence community says that he is highly credible and is bringing forward urgent information, and actually several representatives in Congress were asked about it just 30 minutes or so before you and I spoke, and many of them, including Senator Gillibrand, Senator Hawley, bipartisanship, if you will, all said that they were credible and that they had asked the intelligence community about that, and were it quote unquote rang true, at least in some cases.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to be president of the United States and dig into that one. That is fascinating.
Okay, wow. Well, let's start with RFK Jr.'s last statement. He says, well, I can't wait until I'm president of the United States and can really dig into this one. Now, all due respect here, but it is not an acceptable position on a matter of national security to say, I don't know anything about this, but when I'm president, I will get around to check it out. I'm afraid RFK Jr. just hasn't read this room right. To ask Sagar if he's seen the article about Dave Grush, who he calls some guy, I mean, whoever is supposed to be prepping the candidate has fallen down on the job. Sagar is not only into this story, but as he correctly said, they have covered it extensively on Breaking Points. And RFK's question, do you think that was a psyop or was that real? Well, that question would be potentially more valid, I suppose, if he actually knew what was being reported and debated about Dave Grush and his claims. Then RFK Jr. says, why don't you tell me what we're talking about? Well, that's a dead giveaway. He doesn't know himself. If he did, he would have teed that up by explaining what he knew about it and stating whatever feelings and impressions he might have had. And by the way, just for the record, Sagar did an excellent job of summarizing the situation. RFK Jr., however, knew none of that, let alone who the guy was or what he was whistleblowing about. The whole bit was a mess, but we're not done.
And really,
what is your view of the UFO phenomenon? Just your personal
well,
view.
I don't know anything about it other than I'm very, very good friends with Dan Aykroyd, who's kind of devoted his life to studying that phenomenon and is, very, very convinced of it. But I've never seen a UFO. And but I also, the stuff that I've read, of people, particularly the Navy pilots who have recorded these encounters seem, I'm certainly not going to dismiss it. It seems like it's real, but I don't have a good grasp on it. But I mean, that article you were talking about was fascinating because it was just exactly what Men in Black said is actually happening. That they gave us Velcro and all of this
right.
other that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least RFK Jr. was honest. When asked what he knows about the UFO issue, he answers, well, I don't know anything about it. Even in a world where that passes for an answer, it needs to be followed by words to the effect that I'm going to look into it more deeply. I promise you and your viewers. And when I'm back on your show next time, we'll have a more in-depth conversation, or words to that effect. Two more comments. It's also not acceptable as an answer to say that you know Dan Aykroyd, as if that bolsters your credibility on this issue. I mean, hell, I know Dan Aykroyd, probably not as well as RFK Jr. does, but I'm not telling you that knowing him is the summary of my research into this topic. Also, RFK Jr. says he's never seen a UFO, as if that gets him off the hook for not having a policy thought on the issue. One does not have to have seen a UFO to have an opinion about a government whistleblower, what charges he's making, or even the reality of the phenomenon. Now, I've not seen a UFO or been abducted, but I'm certainly well briefed on the topic and I've done my homework. He should do the same. At least he said, quote, "It seems like it's real." But this really is grading on the curve. There have been 2 government reports and 2 public hearings where the government has said exactly that it's real. But I don't get the impression that RFK Jr. knows about any of it. Then he says, again, the article was fascinating. He's talking about Dave Grush now, and he says, because it's like Men in Black actually happening and that aliens gave us Velcro. Okay. I have read the Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal article 5 times now, and I've sat through 2 extended interviews with Dave Grush. And I'm here to tell you that nobody ever invokes Men in Black or Velcro, to the best of my knowledge. Now, at the end of this interview, both Crystal and Sagar look a little bit embarrassed by the entire way it went, and that's kind of how I felt. The truth is, I loved RFK Jr.'s dad. I lived in Oregon in 1968 when he lost that primary. It was the first election any Kennedy had ever lost. I collect campaign buttons and Newsweek and Time issues, and my favorites feature RFK. I remember vividly the night he died, and my father woke me up and said, "They killed Bobby Kennedy." And my brother, me, my mom and dad, we all got up and we watched TV into the middle of the night and we cried. As Bobby Kennedy always said, we can do better. Well, that's my advice for his son. On this subject of UFO UAP reality, he needs to do better. Okay, interview number 2, this time on the Hill with Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie Sauvé. It happened 6 days after the one you just saw. Let's see if Junior learned anything.
We'd love to know your thoughts on this. If you think there's UFO intelligence that should be declassified, rather than having this guarded closely, whatever it is, by military and U.S. intelligence agencies.
All I can say is if they got it, it's one of the first questions I'm going to ask, and I'm going to want to see the little fellas and their spacecraft, and I will, and then disclose everything that I can. I'll disclose everything to the American public unless there's some really compelling reason not to, which I don't anticipate. But I read the article by that guy, about that whistleblower who's still in the military, and it just seemed very credible to me, but I don't know. I don't have any way of assessing it, and I guess they're taking it seriously on Capitol Hill, which I'm very happy about. I think everybody's curious about this. Everybody would love to know whether we have company neighbors in the universe. It's really exciting, and I think, I would, that's the kind of thing I think we should share with the American people and have discussions, philosophical discussions about what that means for us, and what that means for our planet, and how that, and particularly whether it's a good thing for us to continue to spend so much money fighting each other when maybe we should be trying to make this planet livable and habitable, and do all the other things. I think it will be really good for us to know those things. I suppose they want to keep it secret so they can weaponize those technologies or whatever. I guess they probably think they have good reasons for doing it, but I think there's compelling reasons, if they have that stuff, that we should release it to people.
Okay, he says, all I can say is if they have it, I'm going to want to see it. Well, that's kind of the debate right now, sir. You want to be president, you have to join it now. And man, do you have to smile and say, I'm going to want to see the little fellows and their spacecraft. I mean, what's next, sir? Talk about green aliens and tinfoil hats? Care for a little X-Files music with that? Then RFK Jr. says he'll disclose everything unless there's a good reason not to. Well, again, sir, that's exactly the conversation that is happening right now. You simply can't punt this issue until January 2025. No. He says he has no way of assessing the issue. What? I mean, of course he does, just like all of us. You actually read the articles, you read the reports, you get informed, you learn about the whistleblower's background and his classification. You learn about those reports, like I said, you talk to people in the know. No way of assessing it? That's just nonsense. I'm really sorry to have to say it, but that doesn't wash. Now, he does a little better when he says learning whether we're alone or not is exciting. And he questions whether we should be spending so much of our money preparing to do battle with each other given these particular givens. That was really, in my view, his best moment because he was taking the issue and letting it begin to have a glimmer of a chance at informing his policy. So here's the thing for RFK Jr. Sir, if you need a briefing, my pal and investigative journalist Ross Coulthard and I will be happy to give you one anytime. Just say the word. Or I guess you can just ring up Aykroyd.